the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing. Scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. AVWeek.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to talk about all the news and everything this week is Mr. George Fournier from FSR. How are you, sir?
Not bad, sir. And yourself?
Not too shabby. George is the happy owner, brand new, of over 1,000 Twitter followers. So keep following him.
Woohoo.
Yay!
Yay!
Also with us is Mr. Justin Kennington. You may recognize this face from a couple different places, but Justin has just joined Aptovision. How are you, sir?
Wonderful, thank you. I don't have a Twitter yet, but I keep meaning to get one.
Still?
It's expensive, right?
It shouldn't be quite. All right, last but not least, Julio Carrasco from H323HD. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Very good, very good. I've been wanting to get Julio on for a long time now. I physically met him, was it last year at Infocom? We met for the first time, it was 2 years ago. Yeah, in Vegas. Still, yeah, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
At our tweet up, and well, let's just say he's a busy guy. It was the last time he was supposed to be on.
My traveler.
Yeah, you were like, hey, dude, I'm stuck in Dubai. I'm like, okay, that's probably the best excuse I've ever heard. So sure. You know, sure, honey, I'm in Dubai. I won't be home tonight.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, sure, awesome.
That works.
That works. All right, first up here. So here's an interesting thing. I taught a class this week at Infocom Connect, or last week at Infocom Connections, and it was talking with tech managers and higher ed folks about transport, talking about how to future-proof. And up until probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, when I was researching and trying to add to that presentation, my estimation of where we were going with transport and doing video was anything over 8K we're going to have to do in fiber, right? Justin's company does some interesting things. They get full, almost full 4K down under 10 gigs. But so that's groovy. But then if you do 8K, that's double that. So you're almost looking at fiber when you were talking about 8K, huh?
4x.
4x. So along comes this story from cablinginstall.com, where a group of folks are working with how to get Cat 8 4 times, 40 gigs, kids, 40 gigs on Cat 8. So, Mr. Kennington, we'll start with you. The question is how big of a deal is this, or are they just basically prolonging the inevitable where we're going to have to eventually abandon copper?
Wow, that's a big question with several points to be made. The first thing that I think needs to be addressed is the difference between the kind of data communications that go on in the IT space, in the data center, and the world here of Pro AV, where we like to co-opt and sort of ride the coattails of the standards and technologies developed by that much larger industry. So I think in data center terms, this kind of speed over copper can make sense because copper can be very economical to install and deal with. But then on the technology side, as this article describes, there are one important limitation and one important thing that's easy to overlook in this article. The limitation is that we're no longer talking about 100 meters. For forever now, yes. Anybody designing an Ethernet network cable plant knows that your copper cables back from Cat 3 days can be 100 meters long. And in this article, it even says we're not talking about 100 meters. I think they were talking about 30 meters.
30 meters, yeah.
You can imagine in a data center top of rack situation, I only need to get from the floor to 8 feet in the air. 30 meters is more than enough. Maybe I want to cross over between racks, and again, there's plenty of space there. There's a lot of application in Pro AV where 30 meters is enough. The question is the 30-meter application in Pro AV big enough that someone's going to use this technology for Pro AV? What I mean is, if you have to have one technology below 30 meters and some other technology above 30 meters, maybe we just all use the other technology because we don't want to have to go back and forth and worry about that shorter distance. But here's the very important thing in this article that's easy to miss, is they are talking about designing a Category 8 specification that can do 40 gig Ethernet up to 30 meters on RJ45 connectors.
Yes.
That is a critical point.
Yes.
The signal integrity device, the RJ45 connector, is basically garbage. However,
They said they can do it.
Yeah.
however, it's easy to use and it's cheap.
Great
It has a lot of benefits.
Terminate in the field.
So yes, it makes sense for them to be doing this. My point is to note that and think about the fact that you could build a Category 8 cable and use a different connector and probably achieve distances greater than 30 meters for 40 gig Ethernet. I know, for example, I believe that no one has a Category 7A cabling system that can perform and meet the Category 7A spec with an RJ45 connector at 100 meters. To reach 100 meters and meet the Cat 7A spec, you use different connectors. The only one I'm familiar with is from a company called CMON. It's their Terra E series, which is a very cool connector. It's very easy to use, but it's a really different thing than an RJ45. So, like I said, you need to be aware of that difference, that limitation. It could be that our industry evolves in a way that we continue using copper cable, we continue approaching 100 meters distance, but we have to evolve away from the RJ45 for the highest performance applications.
All right, Mr. Fournier, let's get your take on this. Where are we headed with category cable and transport?
Well, FSR currently, we have a full HD-based T-line that we're out, and we're having a hard enough time with integrators that are actually complaining about using Cat 6A.
Yeah.
And so trying to get people to look at technologies that are going to be encompassing a Cat 8A down the road is very interesting. It's very cool. Has a lot of possibilities, but I still fall back on what are the installers doing. That's usually, to me, aside, like we were saying, the RJ45 connectors on here are the weakest link in the chain. It's also acceptance of a lot of the integrators. If I have to pull a cable that doesn't fit in some conduits because of its bend radius and makes it harder, those jobs in New York City just got a lot more expensive. So I'm going to be watching this very closely to see what it does, but it's cool that they push away, and I took that same thing from the article about that. They're saying it's not the connector that's the holdback, it's actually what the cable's made out of, where they're getting this bandwidth from.
Right.
And so then why can't we just juice up Cat 6A?
Well, and the one thing they did say is in the article is that they're not even considering making the cable bigger, right?
Right.
There are design limitations to that. There, I think it was 22 gauge is the biggest that they'll go. So
Yes, they were actually using Cat 6A and Cat 7A as their benchmark and saying, okay, look, we need to stay at this size for acceptance within the industries.
Yeah. All right, Julio. Let's find out where you come down on this when it comes to transporting, video and audio. Are we reaching the limitations, and should we just, kind of say bye-bye to copper and move everything to fiber?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to move where the technology's going, right? People want everything faster. They want it as if it was yesterday, right?
Yep.
So me as an installer, yeah, I would say that it has to fall on fiber nowadays. I can agree with George and then go back to Justin and say, yeah, RJ45 is horrible, but it's got to be backwards compatible, just like the article says, right? So you have, so many data centers are out there that are 10, 20, 30 years old. For them to take a task to physically go out and change this, it's pretty big,
Right.
but it has to be done.
Yeah, that's actually something they even mentioned in the article, is that when you're putting copper backbone in, you're looking at a 20-year investment.
Right.
Instead of 5 years down the road, I got to yank it all out again.
Exactly.
So most people look at fiber right now and say, okay, I'll put that in because I know I've got bandwidth in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Most people are putting fiber.
Yep.
So there's another, sort of coming at this sideways perspective that combines those 2 points. George brought up you have to make products that the installers are going to choose, that's what they want to do, and that is copper. Even with good fiber optic products out there, installers are comfortable with copper. And given the choice, that's what they want. And Julio said we've got to get more and faster technology. Obviously, that happens, and I agree with that too. I think that where this ends for the video industry is with more and more compression. Today, all the TV manufacturers and the source manufacturers, we go 4K, we go 8K, more and more pixels, but we're also going higher frame rates. We're also going bigger pixels with high dynamic range content. So you've got this sort of exponential explosion of bit rates. It's Moore's law. That's what happens. More bits. Real physical devices in the universe, like pieces of copper cable, don't advance exponentially. So in some sense, something's got to give. You've got these data rates exploding, and you've got cable technology slowly improving. And I think what's going to give is not consumer preference or expectation. It's not going to be some magical breakthrough in copper cable technology. I think more and more what we're going to have to see is new compression technologies that can deliver the quality that we need and the low latency that we require in some applications. And be able to come at the problem that way. So maybe 10 gig Ethernet is good enough for now, and in a few years we'll have 25 gig Ethernet, and that will be good enough to carry 50 gigs of 8K bandwidth, for example.
So where does it? I mean, I guess the question, Justin, is which one is pushing what, right? Is the data rate limit ceiling going to push the backbone where, hey, suddenly corporations and home networks and I'm not going to say home networks will never need 25 gig. They will eventually, right? Somebody down the road. But where corporations, where in the past 5-6 years they've been pushing for 10 gig networks, they're gonna exceed their bandwidth for information, right? Yeah. To where they're going to start pushing for 20 or 30 gig networks. Or is it us? Is it the delivery of video, regardless of whether it's compressed or not, saying, hey, we need that?
Yeah, I think always, the application in the end is what drives the technology. People go build the technology because they think it's going to be useful and they'll be able to sell it one day. But they don't start selling it until the application comes along. So what is a good application for 10 gig deployment? Well, for example, zero latency video delivery. Rather than today, the sort of standard approach is build up a complete 1 gigabit data network and then build a total secondary network for your audio video, whether that's HDBaseT or whatever technology. Instead, IT managers and infrastructure managers might be able to say, hey, if we just build a 10 gig Ethernet infrastructure, we can let our audio video ride on that and only have one network. And it's that sort of application that is the demand that will drive the adoption of higher speed Ethernet, for example.
Okay. All right. Well, let's stick with the network for a little bit and talk about the article or blog post rather on our buddy AV Network's website. It's called "Do We Really Need a Quote Unquote Winner in the Networked Audio Field" by Jonathan Owen, CTS. Julio, let's start with you on this. Honestly, and Jonathan goes through and names the different types of networked audio that we're looking at. basically, I'm going to ask the same question he asks. Do we need a winner? Do we have to have a winner in networked audio?
Absolutely not. At the end of the day, you're not going to go with just one solution, right? You're going to go with a solution that works. So to have one absolute winner, it's probably putting all your eggs in one basket, kind of like shooting yourself in the foot. So to answer his question, I say no.
Yeah. So it just depends. It's project specific. It's project dependent, depending on what you need to get done.
Correct.
All right, Mr. Fournier, same question to you. Do we have to have a one ultimate ruler of audio networked audio?
Right now, I don't think so. I mean, it's audio is not my strong point, so I'm still playing catch up in learning Dante and AVB at the same time from an outsider's view, and I see plus and minuses for both types. But being able to use the same infrastructure, I think, is something that for most integrators that are looking at using it is going to be something that is appealing to them. So they don't have to commit and say, okay, well, we're only a Dante house or we're only AVB. You can have that adjustability. It's like being a DM or HD based T. It's you're both getting signal from point A to point B, and you have your processing, but your control and your other third-party manufacturers' products that you're going to throw online with it, who's going to all play well with each other, I think is going to be the huge determining factor in this as we go forward.
Yeah, so interoperability, making sure that everybody can talk to each other. So,
to his point, where they both have their plus and minuses, that's where, both players come into play. So wherever the minus is at, that's where the plus comes in. Wherever the plus is, and so you just can't, like George said, you just can't, decide on we're going to be a Dante house and that's it, call it a day. It just doesn't happen. Not in the real world.
Right. The manufacturers would prefer you to do that.
Yeah. Well, that just doesn't cut it.
But we all, I've been a contractor. I've been, the 3 o'clock in the morning guy trying to get it to work for the Monday morning meeting, and so that's where I look at it from both sides. Is saying, I'd love our guys to settle on one thing and say this is what it's going to be, but in the real world, that doesn't keep the integrators in business.
Well, and the one thing is, a lot of manufacturers are actually are playing multiple sides of this, right? Where they're giving you Dante and AV and the ability to do TSN and some other ones as well, to where you don't have to choose. It's at least a specific manufacturer. So, Mr. Kennington, any words on this one? Do we have to have one ultimate networked audio solution?
I don't think in any situation like this do you have to have one winner. As long as the two competitors are differentiated enough, then instead they sort of drive each other. They both want to beat each other, and so they improve themselves as they go along. So as long as it's true that there are pros and cons to each of them, then it comes down to integrators and system designers, going with what better meets the requirements that I have today.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the same time, here's where I'm not the expert in these fields. What are the clear pros and cons between Dante and AVB? The biggest one I'm aware of is AVB and TSN requires certain support in the Ethernet switches, and I understand Dante does not. But that leads me to think AVB must have some other advantage, and I'm just ignorant of that. Do you guys know?
So here's my take on TSN AVB. Right, this is my advantage. First of all, it is you've got not only the audio aspect of it, but you do have the video, which is there, which there are people developing for, and you also have the control aspect, right? Okay. Don't do that to me.
Yes. That's okay. I'm following. That's a good
okay.
One. No, if I thought you were being stupid, I would just be explicit.
Oh, you would. Okay. But yeah, so it's not just. I don't know that from a pure audio standpoint that AVB and is superior to Dante or vice versa, right? I think that they're both valid. I'm actually I'm assessing a Dante piece right now in our studio that lets you connect computers, like individual apps and stuff like that. It's actually kind of slick. But the thing that gives, I think, TSN an advantage over Dante is the video and the control part, which is somebody that used to program. That really still excites me, is the fact that you can do all that on the network. So,
right, okay.
That's my take on it. Alrighty. So this is kind of networking, but not really. The FCC has done some really, really smart things over the last couple of weeks, giving us the ability to pick our own cable box and stuff like that. That's really groovy. Now they're doing some stupid things. Now, Mr. Kennington has just recently moved to the Great White North, so this really doesn't impact him all that much. But we're still going to get his 2 cents on it. So the FCC is looking to auction off even more spectrum. March 29th, I believe, is the date that they are giving it, or not giving it away, they're selling more. And so here's the thing, and George, we'll start with you on this. There are folks lined up from Shore to Sennheiser to Broadway musicals to little churches in the middle of Idaho that are going to be impacted by even more spectrum. How is this going to affect those of us in the audiovisual industry that, honestly, let's be honest, we're using more and more wireless than we did 10 years ago, because now we are getting into significant decent video transports that are some of them are going over wireless spectrum, and so now we don't just have wireless handheld mics, we have audio and video going wirelessly.
Yeah, I mean, it's having been in the New York City area, trying to get some wireless mics to work in a 80-story building that's within 2 blocks of NBC or CBS has always been a challenge. If they start expanding the spectrum to anybody and everybody, you're going to have to get some pretty channel agile systems in there to be able to handle this. I mean, I don't know which way we're going with this. I mean, it's really it scares me, but it's also interesting at the same time. It's with the amount of video presentation systems, everybody's got a phone or a tablet or something that's going to transmit one of 7 different versions of something. Some of the stuff is transmitting only 30 feet, some of it 30 meters, and it goes through walls. So now it's, what happens? And this, if you have a couple of industries that start buying up the spectrum on it and start limiting it again, do we have what we had a couple of years ago, where everybody has to start changing out systems lock, stock, and barrel in order to put the new stuff in?
Yeah, absolutely we will. Yeah, and that's a very good point. Is I know that both Sennheiser and Shure had a trade-in program, right, where they gave you a certain amount of credit towards their old frequencies and on the purchase of new ones. I only know those 2 because I only deal with those 2, so don't send me nasty emails and say, well, we did it too.
Right.
I use Shure and Sennheiser, not exclusively, but those are the 2 main wireless systems that I've used.
Sure.
Justin, same question to you. I joke about you moving to the Great White North. This doesn't impact you, but it does, right?
In some sense, it's a little bit my fault. One of my
really?
One of my side projects back when I was at Google was designing the front end for the software-defined radio that is their Whitespace's communication device.
Oh, that's you just suck then.
So I helped build that, and then Google went and bid on all that spectrum back in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Oh, so he moved north as a witness relocation.
Exactly.
Fell out of the country.
His new name is Pierre Kennington.
Yeah.
I just left this industry and then moved into it. I'm not sure that was the right play now. Look, but I am going to take their side here, which is, come on.
Okay, whose side?
The electromagnetic spectrum is sort of a limited and very public resource. how long are we going to let a few wireless microphones in a few churches and stadiums and auditoriums dictate how that bandwidth is reserved and used, when there are much more efficient ways to use that spectrum than AM and FM modulation at 30 kilohertz. I'm sorry, but you need to move to more sophisticated modulation and quit using so much spectrum for a tiny little bit of audio data.
Right.
Okay, it's not a tiny. Hang on, it's not a tiny bit. Do you know how many theaters? You know how many theaters are in New York alone?
Yeah, but I mean, per microphone, you're generating, a few hundred kilobits of data in space that I could be using to send, 12 megabits and 25 megabits.
Right.
Well, irresponsible, frankly, waste of public use.
Well, there's actually a funny part about the article that Pete wrote is he talks about MetLife Stadium.
Yeah.
Where they have all the wireless mics, but they also have all the computer wireless access points. And that happens to be right across the street from the behemoth of New Jersey, the mall that has refused to open.
Yeah.
And I was originally involved with doing the AV install in there 12 years ago when it was first started. And there's an FM radio station transmitter sitting right next to the building. So the entire building is run in fiber because anytime you run copper longer than a certain amount of feet, the FM turned them into these grounding devices that would electrocute anybody who touched anything within the building.
Nice.
To a point where someone accidentally took the grounding rods off of one of the lifts as they were putting up some plasma displays and actually bored a hole in a sprinkler pipe with the spark that shot from the lift. And then 2 weeks later, another grounding thing knocked a crane off the top of the building.
Holy cow!
Cranes falling, pipes being bored through, and you guys are worried about buying some new wireless microphones? Bigger problem.
So we had that part of the state hums from the amount of stuff that's in the radio frequency in that area.
George, I'm just going to say this, and I have lots of friends who live in New Jersey, but you are not helping the overall image of your state.
We'll go for a ride, and I'll show you the rest of the Garden State.
Okay.
It's really, and I learned this having just moved to that area, 6 years ago, and I'm going now. But you get this picture in your mind from the rest of the U.S., and that awful stereotype. It's all industrial and humming with electromagnetic energy. But that is just one little spot right there by MetLife, essentially. And the rest of the state really is beautiful.
It's really very nice. Yes.
I live in Jersey.
See?
All right. Julio, we'll give you the last word on this. Where are we at? Where are we in trouble here with wireless?
I have to agree with Justin. We have to move to.
Oh, don't do that.
Kevin, there's more where that came from.
No, only because, and I only say this because 10, 15 years ago when I used to do AV, you used to get all this crosstalk from taxis in the city. And you have all these high-end meetings going on, and all of a sudden you got these taxis talking over the signal. And it's like, this has got to stop. It's gotten better over the years in the city, but we definitely have to move to a more sophisticated system.
Yeah, and I think that was the big thing that changed with some of the manufacturers a while back was the last time when the spectrum change came around. It triggered these guys to actually really start innovating in some of their solutions that they provide.
Yeah, I mean, in all joking aside, it did give a lot of innovation. I know 3 different manufacturers are working on LTE transmission. There was renewed interest in IR. I don't know why. I still don't get that, but there are some folks that are actually doing really well with IR, both from a wireless standpoint as well as from listening assist standpoint. And I always thought that IR was just the remote control, but I learned better than that. So
that way you can use the microphone to turn on the TV.
Exactly. You can do that. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this. Mr. Justin Kennington, thank you, sir.
It was
very happy for you and your new move. So obviously you don't have Twitter yet, so how can people find you and or AVWeek?
You can find us at aptovision.com, and oh goodness, we have a Twitter, and I need to find out what it is. I'm terrible at the social media.
You are terrible.
Horrible. Look at aptovision.com. Find me on LinkedIn, and there you go.
All right, very good. Julio, very glad to finally get you on, buddy. How can people find you?
Unlike Justin, I'm all over. LinkedIn, Instagram, website. I mean, I'm everywhere.
You are indeed H23.
H323 HD Inc.
There we go. All right, thank you, buddy. Mr. George, thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome, sir.
How can I find you?
You can follow FSR at FSR_Inc. You can find me at George V. Fournier, Fournier, just because I wanted to make the type of handle that no one can remember easily.
and the type that takes up, half of your 140 characters. So
there you go.
I just need to throw. I looked it up. It's at Aptovision.
There you go. See? Now your marketing team won't be mad at you.
I am the marketing team. I should be fired.
Yep.
I got nothing.
You have to tuck it.
I'll just leave that one there.
Yep, just gonna leave that one alone. My name is Tom Albright, but don't follow me. Go by the website. Lots of really great people have done some really cool things. I happened to break it this week, so that was my contribution to it this week. So that was fun. Don't try to migrate servers in the middle of the night by yourself.
You're welcome, by the way.
Never done it before. Let's just put it that way. AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others. Our brand new residential show comes to you live on Mondays, just like this one comes to you live on Fridays, 2 Eastern, and then we'll post Mondays and Wednesdays, I think, is when we're doing those. So check that out. We've got a new EdTech coming up and a new State of Control sometime soon. So AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been AV Week.